You ever notice how people only start praying when the walls are closing in? When the sirens get louder, the masks slip, and suddenly everyone's looking for a way out, a way up, a way back? That's when it hits them. Maybe heaven isn't some fluffy cloud in the sky. Maybe it's a last-minute exit door they forgot they'd need. Funny, isn't it? The same people who mocked faith when the lights were on now whisper to the ceiling in the dark, like maybe, just maybe, something's still listening. It's funny, isn't it? How people treat prayer like an emergency fire alarm. Break glass only when everything's burning, when the ground shakes, when the people leave, when the mirror doesn't lie anymore. That's when they suddenly remember, oh, right, there's that thing, that whisper, that invisible helpline they laughed at yesterday. But today it's life or death. 'Cause comfort is the real amnesia. From my 10th year bands, they are long as it's bare. When life's good, nobody prays. They pose, they post, they play pretend like nothing can touch them. But let the lights flicker just once, let life show its teeth, and suddenly their knees know the way down before their pride does. You see it in hospitals, in funerals, in the middle of the night when the phone doesn't ring back. That's when the prayers come out. Not the rehearsed ones, no. Those break apart too easy. I'm talking about the kind that sound like crying and taste like regret. The ones that have no rhythm, no filter, just pure ache. Funny how raw truth doesn't need a script. It never did. But they forgot that. They were taught to only believe in what they could hold, taste, spend, or post about. And now they're holding broken pieces and asking why nothing feels real anymore. They say prayer is for the weak. Oh, but weakness is honest, isn't it? It's what's left when the masks fall. And guess what? Most people are wearing 12 masks and calling it personality. They patch themselves together with likes, with lust, with loans. But when all of that fails, and it always does, they start talking to the ceiling, to the sky, to anything that might listen. And deep down, they're not even sure what they're talking to. But they do it anyway. Why? Because the pain got louder than the noise. You'll see them walking around pretending they've got it all figured out. But watch closely. Watch the ones who laugh a little too hard, smile a little too long. Those are the ones who go home and whisper into the dark when no one's around. And that whisper, that's the beginning of a prayer. Not to some polished God in a golden frame, but to something, anything, that might still care. They don't even say please the right way. Doesn't matter. Heaven doesn't need perfect grammar. It listens to heartbreak fluently. When everything falls apart, prayer becomes the only thing that makes sense. Not because it's magical, but because it's real. Because it's the first time they've said something without trying to sell it. It's the first time they've asked without expecting applause. That's when they remember prayer was never about sounding holy. It was about being honest. And honesty is terrifying. It's the crack in the armor. It's the voice that says, I can't do this alone anymore. And that voice? That's the one heaven responds to. The tragedy is not that people don't believe. It's that they wait until belief is their only option. They've got time for everything else, parties, profits, petty wars with themselves, but not a second to check in with the part of them that's slowly dying. Not until it screams, not until the pain gets sharp enough to cut through the distractions. And when that moment comes, when their world goes silent, they finally speak. And what they say sounds a lot like help, even if they dress it up with fancier words. That's when the game changes. Because prayer isn't just a last resort. It's the first real thing they've done in years. It's the moment they stop pretending. And that's dangerous. Because once you taste truth, lies don't hit the same. Once you cry out without a mask, you start realizing how many days you've spent performing. And then you wonder, what else have I missed while I was too proud to kneel? So they keep it quiet. They don't post it. They don't talk about it over coffee, but in the dark, when nobody's watching, they're whispering again. Maybe not to a God with a name. Maybe not to a religion. Maybe just to something more. Something that still feels like hope. And that's enough to make them say it again. Not out loud, not for the world, just for themselves. Just in case someone up there or in here is still listening. Because when panic hits, when control disappears, the truth shows up. And the truth sounds a lot like prayer. People think heaven is far away, some distant place with golden gates, angel choirs, and a light so bright it blinds out all the bad decisions. A someday thing, a retirement plan for the soul. So they put it off like taxes or apologies. I'll deal with it later, they say, while juggling addictions and smiling through breakdowns. But here's the twist. Heaven's not playing hide and seek. It's not late, it's not lost. It's right here, right now, breathing down your neck while you scroll past it every morning. It's not waiting. You are. See, people keep looking up for heaven as if it's hanging out in the sky somewhere, sipping divine tea and waiting for them to clean up their act. But they miss it. Because heaven's not about geography. It's about readiness. It shows up when your guard drops, when the laughter dies down and the silence gets loud enough to scare you. That's when heaven taps on the inside of your chest and says, "Can you hear me now?" And most people don't. Not because it isn't speaking, but because they've stuffed their ears with too much noise to notice. They say heaven is peace, but peace isn't always soft. Sometimes peace punches through your chaos like a riot in reverse. It doesn't wait until you're perfect. It shows up mid-meltdown, in the middle of your worst decision. It walks into your mess like it owns the place and dares you to act like it's not real. And still, most people ignore it. They light candles to distractions, pray to popularity, worship routine. They chase temporary highs and call it purpose, while the real thing sits across from them in silence, waiting for eye contact. Heaven doesn't knock politely. It doesn't leave a voicemail. It shows up with urgency because your time isn't promised and your soul isn't on autopilot. Every moment you delay is a moment something darker moves in. That's the game. Light doesn't wait forever. It comes in bursts, in whispers, in warnings. And if you don't move when it says move, you start thinking hell is normal. You start calling numbness stability. You start mistaking survival for living. And that's when heaven starts to feel like fiction, because you're too deep in the lie to recognize the truth standing in front of you. People don't ignore heaven because they don't believe. They ignore it because they're scared. Scared that if they open that door, they'll have to change, that their excuses won't hold up, that all the masks they've glued to their skin will melt off in the presence of something real. They say they want light, but they flinch when it gets too bright, because light exposes, light reveals, and revelation hurts more than denial ever did. That's why heaven doesn't feel safe to people who've made a home out of their pain. But here's the thing, heaven's not here to coddle you. It's here to wake you up, to rattle a cage you didn't know you were living in. And that's not always pretty. Sometimes heaven sounds like an alarm clock after 3 hours of sleep. Sometimes it looks like losing everything you thought mattered. Not to punish you, to strip you, to get to the core of who you are underneath the filters and fake smiles and carefully curated suffering, because heaven can't heal who you pretend to be. It can only touch the truth. So when it shows up, and it will show up, it won't come with fireworks. It might look like a conversation you didn't expect, a stranger's eyes that see too much, a sentence in a book that hits like a brick. It won't feel convenient. It'll feel disruptive. That's the point. Heaven's not polite. It's persistent. It doesn't knock once. It pounds. Because it knows the clock's ticking and your soul isn't designed for endless delay. People think they'll recognize it when it comes, but they're expecting a parade. What they'll get is a moment, a whisper, a shift, and if they're too distracted, they'll miss it again and again until the silence is deafening and the ache too sharp to ignore. That's when they'll look around and wonder when everything changed. But heaven didn't change. They did. They finally stopped running long enough to hear it breathing beside them, waiting, not far away, not someday, right here, right now, with no more time to waste. You ever look in the mirror and wonder if what's staring back is real or just a patchwork of what the world told you to be? Most people don't see themselves. They see a version of themselves filtered through fear, through failure, through what mom said, what school said, what heartbreak carved into their spine. But under all that, there's a pulse. There's something breathing and ancient and loud. That thing, that spark, that's the miracle. And they spend their whole life walking past it like it's background noise, waiting for some cosmic gift wrapped in gold to fall out of the sky. But the punchline is, it's already here, already beating, already begging to be noticed. They want lightning bolts. They want signs from the heavens, booming voices, angels doing cartwheels. But they can't even sit still long enough to hear their own thoughts, let alone something divine. So they label the miracle as someday. Someday I'll change. Someday I'll be happy. Someday I'll feel like I'm enough. But someday's a drug, and they're hooked, numbed out, waiting for a miracle that's already screaming inside their ribcage. They look everywhere except the mirror because deep down, they know the truth is staring back, and the truth is, they are the miracle they've been praying for. It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't arrive with clarity. It shows up in pieces, in pain, in persistence. The miracle's in the way they keep breathing after betrayal, in the way they show up when it'd be easier to disappear, in the way their heart breaks but still somehow beats. That's the stuff no one claps for. That's the raw, holy kind of resilience that doesn't look shiny enough for Instagram. But it's real, and it's powerful, and it scares people. Because if you are the miracle, then you're also the responsibility. No one else is coming. No magical fix, just you. And that's enough if you stop running from it. They dress the miracle up in guilt and shame, call it too broken, too loud, too complicated, but that's what makes it beautiful. Not some perfect version of you that never cries and always says the right thing. No, the miracle is the you that survives chaos and still dares to feel something, that still wants to love, to hope, to scream truth into a world that rewards silence. But miracles make people uncomfortable because once you realize you're one, you don't get to play victim anymore. You don't get to hide behind if only and one day. You've got to wake up. But most people won't. They'll keep searching for it in other people, in jobs, in drugs, in distractions, anything to avoid sitting with the terrifying thought that maybe the thing they've been waiting for is them. That maybe all the power they pretend not to have is just buried under years of pretending to be smaller than they are. Because it's safer to be powerless. No risks, no accountability, just float along, blaming the world. That's the easier story, but it's a lie. And lies rot the soul, quietly. The miracle isn't perfect. It limps, it stutters, it shows up late and still demands to be seen. It's the fire you buried when life taught you to shrink. It's the voice you quieted every time you chose comfort over courage. And now it's waking up. It's clawing at the walls of your doubt, shaking the foundation of your pretend life. And you can either open the door or keep telling yourself you're just a regular person living a regular story. But even that choice, that's the miracle whispering. Decide. So they keep walking through life like ghosts, pretending they're waiting for something big. But the truth? The big thing is already inside them, pounding like war drums. They don't need more answers. They need honesty. They don't need a savior. They need to stop looking at their reflection like it's a stranger, because behind the scars, behind the noise, behind the mask, there's a miracle. And it's not polite. It's not soft. It's fierce. It's messy. It's real. Oh, chaos. Sweet, misunderstood, unloved chaos. People spend their whole lives running from it, blaming it, cursing it. They treat it like a punishment, like life suddenly turned on them and threw them into the fire just to watch them burn. But the truth they never want to hear is that chaos isn't cruelty. It's a courier, a message with cracked edges and sharp teeth. It doesn't show up with a welcome sign. It kicks the door in. Because gentle doesn't work on people who only listen when everything's screaming. You see them pacing around their perfectly organized lives, scared to blink too hard in case something falls apart. But what they don't realize is that nothing real ever breaks in chaos. Only the lies do. Only the illusions. The job they hated, the relationship they faked, the identity they stitched together from everyone else's expectations. Chaos doesn't destroy you. It just reveals what's been dead for years. And people hate that. They hate seeing the truth without its makeup. So they call it a breakdown, a crisis, rock bottom. But what it really is delivery. A package straight from the universe with no return address. Inside, clarity. Painful, untamed, and unwanted clarity. It tells you what matters. It tells you who you are when the titles disappear, when the mask falls, when the stage burns down. Chaos is the great equalizer. It takes the powerful and the pitiful, strips them both down to bone, and asks one simple question. Now what? Most people don't answer. They medicate, they distract, they spiritualize, anything but sit in the wreckage and listen to what it's trying to say. But those who do listen, they find something madness can't touch. Because chaos doesn't just show up to destroy, it shows up to rearrange, to gut the lies and make space for something true. It's the renovation crew of your soul, swinging hammers through everything you built on fear. But oh, how we hate being uncomfortable, how we beg for peace, even if that peace is built on silence and self-betrayal. We make deals with our own demons just to avoid the storm. But chaos doesn't care about your deals. It doesn't care about your schedule, your plans, your 5-year vision board. It shows up when you've ignored the signs for too long, when the soul is suffocating under all the pretending. And when it comes, it's not the enemy, it's the intervention. Still, most people treat it like a glitch, a detour, something to escape from fast. They go into panic mode, scrambling to glue the broken pieces back together. But what if the pieces weren't meant to be put back? What if the chaos didn't ruin anything but revealed what was never whole to begin with? That idea scares people more than the chaos itself, because it means they can't go back. It means they have to build something new. And building new things, that takes honesty. And oh, how allergic we are to honesty. But chaos doesn't care if you're scared. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't explain itself in polite terms. It hands you the mirror, shoves you into it, and waits. You can scream, you can blame, you can cry, and all of that's allowed. But eventually, you're gonna have to look. Really look. And when you do, you'll see it. Not ruin, not failure, not divine punishment. You'll see the beginning. The raw, uncut beginning of a version of you that doesn't need the lies anymore. That version, that's the one chaos came to deliver. So while the world sees disaster, the wise see delivery. While the world sees loss, the real ones see liberation. Because chaos doesn't come for the weak. It comes for the strong pretending to be weak. It comes to tear down the castle made of sand so you can build one made of stone. And it hurts, oh, it hurts like hell. But pain is just part of the package. The real gift is what's left standing after the storm passes. And most people never get to see it because they tap out too soon. They beg for comfort instead of clarity. They want answers, not awakening. But awakening is messy. Awakening comes with cuts, with grief, with the unbearable realization that the old you has to die for the real one to breathe, and death, even metaphorical death. It terrifies them, but not you. You're still here, still listening, still holding the chaos in your hands and wondering what it really is. Let me tell you, it's not destruction, it's delivery. It's the sound of chains snapping. It's the miracle, arriving in a mask you didn't expect. They told you asking for help was weakness, that strength meant silence, meant standing tall with a smile while everything inside you burned, that emotions were inconveniences, not messages, that needing someone made you small, so you swallowed your screams, stitched your pain behind sarcasm, wore your trauma like designer clothes and called it personality. You learned to laugh at the worst parts of you just so no one else would beat you to the punch. But deep down, under the clever comebacks and tired eyes, you knew you weren't fine. You became a master of deflection, turned vulnerability into a punchline. Every time someone asked how you were, you gave them a performance, a show, and the audience clapped. Because they never really wanted the truth. They just wanted you to be functional. So you gave them that. You gave them function. Not joy, not peace, just barely put together pieces taped over with fake confidence. And every night, when the lights went off and the crowd left, the silence crept in and reminded you you're still bleeding. But here's the joke. They say asking for help is weak, yet surviving alone almost killed you. They say don't rely on anyone, but then punish you for being distant. They glorify independence and mock desperation, but the second you finally crack, suddenly they're shocked. Why didn't you say something? Oh, but you did. 1,000 times. In 1,000 ways. just not in the language they cared to hear. You hinted in the humor, you screamed through silence. You asked for help without asking, but no one listens unless the house is already on fire. And when you finally say it, when you finally drop the act and whisper, "I'm not okay," the world looks at you like you broke the script, like you ruined the plot. But you weren't ruining it. You were rewriting it, reclaiming your voice from the cage they locked it in. And that's not weak. That's warfare. You declared war on every lie they planted in you about how you're supposed to cope. You stopped pretending that pain is poetic. It's not. It's just pain. And you got tired of being your own emergency room. You the rough rubber, but asking for help, it costs. Not money, not pride, control. You give up the illusion that you have it all handled, that you don't need anyone, and that's terrifying because when you ask, you risk rejection. You risk being seen, and being seen, that's a kind of naked most people aren't ready for. They'd rather stay clothed in dysfunction than expose the wounds underneath. But you, some part of you, knows that staying silent is the real risk, that the longer you pretend to be unbreakable, the closer you come to shattering. And let's talk about the people who say, "You can talk to me anytime." Funny, right? Because when you actually do, their eyes dart, their mouths fumble, and suddenly your truth is too heavy for their ears. They meant you can talk, just not about that. Not about the ugly stuff. Not about the thoughts that wake you at 3 a.m. Not about the rage, the grief, the numbness that sticks to your ribs like poison. They want the digestible version of you, the edited, palatable pain. But help doesn't come in clean packaging. It shows up messy, shaking, crying, honest. You start to realize help isn't a hotline or a hug or a quote on the internet. It's connection. Real, raw, uncomfortable connection. It's admitting to someone, "I'm not okay, and I don't even know where to start." It's letting someone into the disaster zone of your mind without sweeping the broken glass off the floor first. It's ugly, and it's beautiful, because finally, you're not playing a role anymore. You're just human. And being human means being held sometimes. It means leaning. It means not having all the answers and still being worthy of love. You're not a burden. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're tired. And being tired is allowed. Being tired doesn't disqualify you from healing. If anything, it qualifies you even more, because it means you've been fighting for too long alone. And maybe now, it's time someone else helped carry the weight. So when you ask for help, you're not failing. You're rising. Rising from the ashes of everything they told you to be. You're burning the blueprint and building something real, something that breathes, something that bleeds, honestly. And that is stronger than pretending ever was. It's funny how people worship comfort like it's salvation, as if peace is the prize for pretending long enough. They dress up their routines like shrines. Same job, same people, same fake smile at the same tired mirror. They call it stability. I call it sedation. You ever notice how quiet it gets in their eyes? Not calm, dead. That glassy, glazed-over stare of someone who hasn't felt alive in years, but still goes through the motions because Oh, that's terrifying. Better the devil you know, right? They pray for miracles, but run from disruption. They want breakthrough without breakdown, change without chaos, light without burning. But here's the joke. They forget what it costs to stay safe. The soul doesn't rot all at once. No, it's much slower. It decays in tiny choices. The job you hate but don't quit, the truth you swallow instead of speak, the dreams you bury in favor of fitting in, all of it adds up until one day you don't recognize the person brushing their teeth in your bathroom. Just a stranger shaped like you. People think survival is the same as living. They say, well, I'm getting by, and wear that like a badge. Getting by is a prison with a smiley face drawn on the walls. They don't even realize the walls are closing in because they've decorated them so nicely. The same habits, the same fears, the same excuses wrapped in inspirational quotes. They look alive, but haven't taken a real breath in years. And the worst part? They know it. Somewhere deep inside, they know they're meant for more. But knowing and doing, two very different beasts. Because the moment you try to change, that's when it gets loud. Not from the world, from inside. That voice starts whispering all the old scripts. You'll fail. Who do you think you are? This isn't you. That's not your intuition talking. That's your programming panicking. Comfort is a con artist. It makes you believe that peace is found in predictability. But peace doesn't come from safety. It comes from surrender, from diving into the unknown and realizing you didn't drown, that you swam, that you flew, that you bled and didn't break. But stepping into the unknown, that requires death. Not a physical one, the death of identity, of ego, of the character you played for years just to survive, and letting that go, it feels like madness. Because even a toxic routine feels better than no identity at all, so you grip it, white-knuckled, desperate. And the universe laughs because it knows what you're capable of. But you're still convinced you need to be who they told you to be. They programmed you with fear and called it wisdom. Don't risk. Don't stand out. Don't speak too loud. Don't love too deep. And don't ever, ever dream too big. But what if the fear was the invitation? What if the shaking meant you were close? That tightness in your chest, that's not danger, it's resistance. Resistance to becoming. Because becoming means burning. And most people don't want to burn. They want transformation without fire. But fire's the only way through, the only way to melt the mask, the only way to light up the parts of you that've been cold for far too long. It doesn't happen in big moments, it happens in quiet ones. When you say no to what drains you, when you walk away from what numbs you, when you stop explaining your pain and start honoring it. That's when the shift begins. And yeah, it's messy. You'll lose people, you'll lose approval. But what you'll gain, you can't even imagine it yet. Not until you let go. Not until you stop choosing survival over soul. See, the real miracle isn't out there waiting. It's in the decision. The decision to finally move. To step beyond the cage. To walk straight into the dark with nothing but a spark and trust it'll be enough. The world will try to pull you back, offer you old comforts, old roles, old chains with pretty names. But if you're still listening, still breathing, still broken but willing, that's enough. That's the beginning. That's what most people never find because they mistake silence for peace, numbness for healing, and routine for purpose. The ones who find it, they don't look different on the outside. They still show up to work, still pay the bills, but something shifts. There's a fire behind the eyes now, a quiet rebellion in their smile. They stop apologizing for existing, stop shrinking to make others comfortable. They speak even when their voice shakes. They rest without guilt. They ask for what they need and don't flinch when it makes others uncomfortable, because they're not chasing comfort anymore. They're chasing real. And real costs something. But real also sets you free. Have you ever noticed how people love the word faith until it actually costs them something? They wear it on bracelets, print it on coffee mugs, throw it around like confetti on social media. Faith, faith, faith. But then life punches them in the gut, and suddenly that faith turns into fear, into silence, into bargaining with a sky they only look at when things go south. See, they talk about faith like it's some soft, warm blanket, something that comforts. But real faith? It's not cozy. It's not clean. It's a gamble. It's jumping without knowing where you'll land, and still having the audacity to believe you'll fly. Most people don't want that